CBS News.
It's Saturday, baby.
Yeah. We apologize for the delay. The Autobots failed to roll out.
Yeah, thank you. I thought you liked that one.
All right, so I am Blake Tilley.
I guess I'm now Thomas Mitchell. Oh, the poor jokes just fell apart.
Yep. Anyway, this is advanced basket weaving.
Yeah. In a volcano.
We brought the water just in case you want to learn the underwater version. Go ahead.
All right, so yeah, this is advanced character creation, more of a how to get a more layered, multifaceted character. Just some tips and tricks, some examples, and as much as we can cram in now. One of the key points, though, is backstory. And I don't mean just, oh, I chose this background, my guy was once a blacksmith, and now I adventure.
My entire village was burned to the ground, and now I'm here searching for marshmallows.
When you have a backstory or a background, make it matter.
Yes.
Incorporate that in your character's choices, how they approach things, what items you seek, and how you approach all your situations. Keep that in mind as you develop your character to give them that extra little oomph to who they are. Like, for example, if you wanted to play a rogue, you could play it as the standard street urchin, barely surviving, or you could play it as some aristocratic child who grew up sneaking out all the time. Wanted the thrill of the hunt, so to say.
Well, yes, one of the more important things I see about creating a backstory is, I'm just going to say this one time for my own mental health, it does not have to be tragic.
Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord. One more person whose entire family was wiped out by a carnivorous bunny. I'm going to lose it. But no, one of the important things about a backstory is whatever your origin point is for that backstory, like this is the pinnacle, this is where this character became this character. You should keep that in mind through your backstory from that point all the way until the point your character enters the story at that point. You know, it's like, if I say, oh, my soldier was, taken captive, and now the only thing I like to do is, take hostages, you better not start executing hostages at any point.
Yeah, definitely had a character in that case.
Yeah, that's a bad character trait.
Another feature that is 5e, the character sheet actually mentions it, but almost nobody uses this section of the character sheet. Flaws.
I like to draw on it.
Oh, yeah. But flaws. Give your character an interesting flaw and roleplay that. You can go the standard kleptomania, you can do OCD, paranoia, and
one giant arm.
phobias. Phobias can make for very fun moments. There's a certain part in a module where my character was gifted abilities and pretty much immunity to cold damage, but had a phobia of fire. So when a torch was lit in the next room, I had him pretty much nuke the room and teleport out, which actually circumvented the combat entirely, but it was just, he panicked and left. I think like behind the Kenku in that one.
Yep, I actually, as the horrible DM that I am, I once gave a Kenku the ability to fly and speak freely. And it completely ruined that class, that race for him, because, that's what Kenku's overall goal.
Yeah. Also, with your backstory and your background, use those elements to develop your character's personality. So if they do have a tragic backstory, give them some PTSD from that event, if the whole village burnt down. Have them maybe react if they see a certain, for example, one of our players had a personal vendetta with hobgoblins because of what happened to his character in the past. So the moment a hobgoblin was mentioned, every other side quest, including the main quest, was just, nope.
I still at random times will sit there and go, filthy hobs.
And then...
Oh, yes, reading.
Oh, yes, no. But, so this also means sometimes taking choices that will be less optimal So for example, if you're trying to play more of a pacifist where violence is your last resort, obviously ambush tactics you're not going to want to do if you want to maintain that character and that sort of overall concept. Because while, yes, mechanically, the ambush attack would be great, you see a pack of, we'll use kobolds. A bunch of kobolds, they're ready to come at you, and you're like, or they don't know you're there yet, and you're like, we could just jump them and probably get them all. That particular character's like, no, we must talk first. We can maybe broker peace. And maybe you might get some of that, or maybe it might fall apart.
You probably just jump that guy you wanted to talk first and then go get the kobolds.
That too.
I play a lot of barbarians.
He does. Now this sort of shifts into, after your backstory, your actual character progression. This includes the skill choices, class features, subclasses in the case of 5th edition, feats, spell
Archetypes.
choices, archetypes in other editions, yep. And don't always take what you should take this because it's the best. No. Once again, the suboptimal or more thematic choices can enrich that character concept. So for example, I'm playing a Celestial Warlock in one of the campaigns I'm helping out in, and I took the healer feat to utilize healer's kits as another means of providing sort of a combat medic approach of healing outside of combat. Yeah, I could have taken the spells to just, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed. And while I have that for combat, I use this for outside of combat, more of RPing, the wrapping up, providing salves, ointments and such to build that character as, I've been through it, let's do this. Also, it can reflect a character from a simpler background of, I grew up on a farm. We were taught how to take care of ourselves. You know, simple scratches and poisons, and we do that.
Yeah. There's many ways to use that kind of side information, just little stuff to make your character make more thematic sense. If your backstory doesn't currently match how you're playing your character and you want it to.
Another feat I noticed when I was going through them, the reaffirm this, was the chef feat that came out in Tasha's. You can use that for the mechanical benefit of providing some extra hit points and such, but also the demonstrate the difference between eating rations on the trails and actually someone cooking you a fulfilling meal. Yes, you still get the mechanical benefit, but you can lean into that of, oh no, let me cook for all you guys, and we're going to make this, have a nice campfire, we'll tell some stories, while, you know, we just had to fight off a whole horde of hobgoblins, for example.
And you get to provide sage wisdom to 4 young boys in Colorado.
I've seen Ritual Caster used as a means of demonstrating a failed mage. Didn't make it through the academy, but picked up just enough to still do the rituals. Or even a rogue or a martial type who never learned magic, but was around his wizard buddy enough to learn how to do those little ones. That takes a little longer, but can still achieve the same effects.
Yeah, it's sort of the same idea of giving pretty much any character 2 or 3 levels in monk and turning them into just a full-scale monk with a couple of little items.
Mm-hmm. As much as I usually avoid this feat, lucky. And this can actually be used if the DM's okay with it, a way to incorporate a story element where instead of you just have this meta ability of just you reroll, I reroll. No, it's maybe you were touched by fate or an entity blessed you or cursed you. And you sort of can rewind time a little bit, and we're going to redo that.
Ah, yes, the flavor texting of an ability like luck.
Yes, which leads to the next main point. You have a question?
Yeah, how would luck be a curse? Because curse has like a negative.
That is true. And in that kind of element, it could be character's pride. No, I did that, that's what it should be, or that this was fate, that's how it should have been. You could also, as the DM, could put in an actual penalty that down the road this happens. Or maybe every time you used it, the BBG has another luck point to spend.
Okay.
If that's between you and the DM to, of course, figure out if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or it could be something from a curse that you're benefiting from, and there's the lucky feat. That leads into reflavoring. And this is, for me, probably the heart of making a more conceptual character, is taking the mechanical, using that, but flavor texting it to better match the character you want to create.
Yes, so like when I want to be the stealthy barbarian, I just say, oh, well, I'm going to say I'm stealthing, but what I'm actually doing is intimidating them so badly that they will never tell anybody they've ever seen me.
One of my favorite examples was I did a Warlock Paladin multi-class, and he had Eldritch Divine Smite. When I finally got to use that combo, instead of just saying he hits really hard one time, I had him do a rapid-fire multi-attack for each of the D8s I was going to roll. Now I rolled one attack mechanically, and if it hit, it hit. But then I just had like almost after images of just rapid-fire back and forth, and it added a different fun to the game, as opposed to just, I hit him really hard, my turn's over, kind of thing. I used the environment to bounce around the attacks, and the DM really liked it, actually, so.
Yes, and I've been known to make quite a few literary characters in D&D, and then just having to flavor text certain abilities and/or items, you know. And it's like, oh, I don't have a one-shot blaster, I have magic missile, but I'll call it that.
And that leads into, as I had mentioned, class features being reskinned. Instead of key points being this sort of mystical energy, you could just make, oh no, that's actually just magic. It's just this character uses magic in a different way. Preparing spells as a wizard. Maybe you don't sit there and memorize a spell and then conveniently you forget the spell after you cast it, and now you can't cast it again until you re-memorize everything. Or instead, you charge these talismans that burn out, and every day you have to recharge them. Could be gems like magic crystals or materia from Final Fantasy VII, for those who ever played that one.
Yeah. If you're I believe it is the Warlock in Pathfinder with the limited spell book, you could always just put that down as tattoos and stuff like that. It's like, oh no, it's only limited because my arm's only so big. I can't keep adding a bunch of spells.
Yep. I think I believe I mentioned in prior panels, if you all were there for that like using the Barbarian Rage to sort of power up the character, sort of Hulk out for a moment. Like almost Escanor in Seven Deadly Sins as an example. And funny enough, using Mage Armor to make a magical girl trope, where when they cast Mage Armor, that's them putting their costume on, and it's actually their armor.
Then there's always, you know, the cannibal barbarian who only rages when he's hangry.
You know. And you can also use really any of the spells or abilities to further make those concepts. Like speaking of the magical girl one, usually you can see in those animes where the girls are able to jump like great distances across skyscrapers, the jump spell. Or in the Warlock's case, what's it called? There's an ability, I forget which one invocation it is, but it lets you cast jump at will, which triples your distance of jumping. And now, it's not the most optimal choice, but if you're making a magical girl, it's perfect.
He only does this to me because I don't know anime.
Yeah, I do. Another example was a buddy of mine wanted to play a monk, but he also wanted to play a kobold. And when he was looking through the different monk subclasses, he picked the Way of the Living Weapon, which you get extra damage. And he was like, well, how do I incorporate this? Like, well, you could make it, because he wanted to be a runaway slave, that you basically mimicked your master's training. He's like, oh, I could be the punching. I was like, exactly. Every time they hit you, you remembered how they did it, and you sort of, in the background, started refining your combat skill, and then you ran away. There's his monk's training. And as he would level, it would be him refining his abilities, picking up other combat from enemies or teammates to further refine his overall abilities. When it's just him going level 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on.
And I still argue that's just the story of Master Splinter.
It is, but it works.
There you go.
One of my favorite characters was a warlock, and he specialized in illusion magic. And I had him play as a con man, and that was reflective with, even in combat, he would always try to dupe his enemies. So when he would summon a sphere of darkness, it was just an illusion, and since he knew it was an illusion, he could see through it like it was just transparent. Gave him advantage on all his attacks, and all the enemies had disadvantage until they got close enough to walk through, and then the illusion was broken. I have two versions of this other character that I've used in two, one in a one-shot and one in a different campaign with a buddy, Jin the Mage of Light. One time I made him a Sun-Soul monk. But for that, I wanted to play more of that brawler, gish mage type, and I would just flavor a lot of his attacks being more almost like Green Lantern constructs half the time. So like we did Flurry of Blows, he attacked so fast that you'd see this after image of these like golden fists coming out and hitting. I gave him the ability to get Guiding Bolt through feet, and that was him charging up his ki, or magic, and it would shoot the beam out. The other version is a healer using the Celestial Warlock as a way to play out on that potential and healing type. Do you have any characters you've done that with? I know yours are usually more straightforward.
Yeah, I'm not a smart man. One of my favorite things to do is to reskin fighters as weird things. One of my personal favorites was we wanted to make a character from a wrestling movie, so we just made the unarmed fighter and gave him the cantrip, I believe the grease spell.
Yeah.
And I think that worked out perfectly fine until he died for not having a weapon.
But it was a fun run with him.
Oh yeah, Sal Bandini.
Yep. And as last night we discussed in one question asked,
We didn't get any questions.
we did. It was
I
about
thought I was
how
just
do
doing
you.
stand-up.
It was asked. We were asked how do you role play a lower stat character doing something that stat normally wouldn't allow. So like a low intelligence barbarian, and you can always reflavor it as otherwise dumb luck, brute force, or learned experience over just general intelligence. So he's doesn't read books per se, but he's done enough dungeon delving to know, hey, that one stone on the wall is slightly farther out and almost no dust on it. I think if I push it, door opens. As an
Yes,
example.
the old school technique of the difference between reading and learning and messing around and finding out.
Now, of course, when you reflavor, work with your DM, they might have some more ideas, or some ideas may not be appropriate for that campaign, so you don't want to assume. But usually most DMs are down for that, because it makes it for more unique and more personal characters, as opposed to, I'm going to play fighter number 5,432. Just like the other previous 5,000 fighters that came before this fighter.
And that is completely okay.
It is.
I am on Barbarian number 600. Nobody said anything yet.
That might be a legitimate number for you, too.
Oh yeah, I kill characters like it's I kill my own characters like it's a job. It's like literally, I had a character in one campaign that was Gerald Jr.
Yeah.
He was there to avenge his great-grandfather, his grandfather, his father, and the mailman. Don't ask.
Yeah. Any questions so far on that?
I know,
Mr.
it's
Rick.
real arduous.
Have you done the reverse order?
Uh,
Mailman Jr., he dies, Mailman Jr. goes to avenge him.
I refuse to bring in Mailman Jr. because he refused to identify his relationship to me as my half-brother and mail carrier.
Any other ones so far? All right, cool.
Actually,
Where do baby characters come from?
Kurt, actually, exactly what you're talking about. We actually just started the very first campaign with all new players, and I'm probably facing a bunch of very reoccurring, obvious new player stuff. Like
Yeah, the standard
I've got someone who's,
archetypes.
Like, who has zero interest in engaging. Like he really wants to be there, but doesn't want to engage at all. And I just want to punch stuff. I'm like, I want to give him things,
Mhm.
without also playing for him.
I got you.
The first tip I'm going to give you. Discipline, abuse.
You could always try describing what he does more excitedly, with more variety, to try to pull him in a bit, or talk with them on how to flavor text it a bit more to what maybe something they're interested in.
Also, open-ended questions about his character in relation to what's currently going on in the story.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you guys entered a dungeon. Your character has been going through dungeons for most of his adventuring career. What do you think you would be doing first in this situation? Is a great way to get them to start to open up with their character and engage more.
Yeah.
I like that.
And if that doesn't work,
He is built like Jet Li.
that's okay. Just
And you
they're like,
can-
look, a distraction.
In real life, not at the table.
Yeah. But you can encourage him to lean into that, and that was actually a point I was going to make. Is when you make the things to build up these concepts, lean into them. Like I said, even if they're not the most optimal in the situation, but lean into them. If you have a character, which we'll get into goals soon, has a personal vendetta, they become almost just tunnel vision when that vendetta comes up. That they work towards making that goal happen. Whether it be their item selection, their spells, where the party goes. They might put their, no, I want to go here. Why? Because I think that guy's there.
Also, it does, like I said, it does help to integrate their character more into the story. It will make them feel more a part of the story and want to engage. And it's like, okay, so this is actually a friend of your father, and this character is after this information and is requesting your help due to the debt your father owes him, kind of stuff. Really does help out a lot too.
And you can also go with more, less tragic, but more straightforward, but not the vengeance route, but the arc of redemption. Perhaps this character did some terrible things in the past, and this is them trying to make up for those. So instead of being this chaotic murder hobo, they're trying to be the lawful paladin. Even if they're not playing a paladin, but that's like the tenets they go by, and no, we must do the right thing just to make up for that. And you can integrate that and have this long, overarching thing that spans the entire campaign.
Or you can just be trying to outdo the evil things you did back then with new, fresh, even more evil things now. Never discount that option.
Now, there's also a feature that's used in the Icewind Dale book that I've known other DMs to use, secrets. A secret that a character is given from the DM. I can't tell that one. But
That's a secret.
But give it to the player, something that only they know, that they can work towards. Now, this could be a secret that could bring in more conflict, such as, oh, well, yeah, you stole from an archduke and bounty hunters are on the way. The party doesn't know yet. Why do we keep getting attacked? I don't know, kind of thing. Or it could be they know of some MacGuffin somewhere, and that could be their goal to reach that for whatever reason you and the DM would come up with to further develop that. But yeah, the secrets are really fun. I've actually doing it with my in the Icewind Dale book, and the players love them. In fact, one of them, he was playing a human barbarian who was raised by Yetis. That was a secret he drew. And then he thinks he's a half-orc because that's the first humanoid he met. He's like, oh, well, they're like me. So he's Bjorn, Yeti's son now. And they love it. He was just thrilled about it, and he's been having a great time with that.
I'm pretty sure that's how you get a yak.
Probably. But with the goals, always try to sort of bring it back to the origin point and integrate that moving forward. Because you want it to be the whole part of the character.
And also, don't be afraid to disregard it as well. It's like, no, I've gone past this. This is who I was, not who I am.
That too? Yeah, exactly.
I used to be a pacifist, and then I killed somebody. I'm like, that's not bad. It gets easier.
Yeah. Now, sometimes there are homebrew options that are exactly what you want for your characters, and you want to make them different and more unique, and those are fine.
Thank you, Reddit.
Yeah, if the DM's for that. Something to talk with. Don't expect all homebrew to be approved, but most DMs are pretty loose on that as long as it's balanced. It could be an option to define. I actually played a class that was a combination of two classes from 3.5, which was the Dragon Shaman and the Dragonfire Adept. They both got at-will breath attacks. But this one had a little more defense, and it had auras that could provide healing for the party. This one had a, kind of like the 5th edition Warlock, you could choose different breath enhancements, and eventually including Bahamut's Breath or Tiamat's Breath if you're playing an evil character or neutral.
I legitimately there thought you were talking about Altoids for a second. Like
No.
breath enhancement, yes.
But yeah, so if the DM's fine with it, you could find something like that and it fits the concept perfectly. If not, reflavoring or maybe a multi-class build can also lead into something you want, or just the right item selection in some cases.
Yes. But one thing I will bring up is one of the more important things that I found when I want my party to understand my character better, custom hand-painted mini to actually represent the character you're playing. So that way they've got an idea of how you see this character in your head.
Yes.
Really does help. And then when he dies, you can crush him with a small sledgehammer, and it will make you feel a little better.
One trick I usually have when I try to come up with something interesting is I will come across a class feature, a spell, sometimes even an item. And I start from that and I go out from there. Like with the Sun Soul monk, the basically the radiant bolts and the giant Kamehameha that he gets at level 11. I was like, well, that's fun. Radiant blast, that could be interesting. And I eventually, well, what if, but monk, everyone's going, oh, you're the monk, go punch things. I was like, no, I don't want that. And then I started leaning towards being a mage who failed the academy. As a dropout. Learned a little bit, and that would explain the magic initiate feat where he got some cantrips and a level 1 spell, but that's as far as he really got. Everything else is self-taught.
Yes, in my current campaign, I've actually built an entire character off the idea that I can be magic, I can be holy, and I can lie all at the same time. It'll be great. I'm Dura in Pathfinder. Essentially, I've just been walking up to groups of people and offering to cast like scrying or location spells, and I just cast light and take their money. And then when when somebody's laying there and they've been, they need healing, I'll heal them up to 1 hit point and go, that'll be 5 gold.
Yep.
Yes. Now, there's a secret to profit making, it's crime.
Yeah. Also, the skills you pick, you can work with the DM to, like if there's a skill check, you might be able to justify a skill that normally wouldn't be used. Our one DM loved to just be open with that. So like if it's like, well,
Not our current one.
yeah, I have a sailor background. I know I have good survival skill and this and that. Can I use that knowledge to make this check about this magic item? It's like, well, you've been through a lot of ports. You would have heard some talk. So yeah, go ahead and make a roll. It was actually about the deck of many things. Like, have you ever heard of this? It's like, oh, you've heard a thing in a tavern or two. So make the roll. The DC will be different because it's not a straight Arcana roll per the game, but then it might be easier. It could be a little challenging, but the player still has a chance to succeed or glean a little more information than maybe the mage who's just rolling 1s and 2s all night.
Yeah,
And can't make the check the same.
always work amazingly. I did once try to say, I know I don't know how to climb a mountain, but that mountain looks pretty stupid, and I'd like to try to bluff it.
Yeah.
I still fell.
Yeah. Any other questions so far? Or ideas or anything? Cool.
Wild magic sorcerer.
What was that?
Wild magic sorcerer. How to make it so it doesn't take away from the game but still stays chaotic.
Ah, the wild magic.
Been trying to make
Well, I like to take a lot of my inspiration for my wild magic sorcery from some orange-haired wizard named Ron Weasley when he broke his wand. It's like, that's exactly what it's like to me. I'm gonna cast Fireball. Well, once again, that was a heal spell.
Yep. That's a great way to actually reflect the wild magic table.
Yeah, I love to just be like, no, even like last time I played a wild mage, I literally just pulled out the spells I had available to me and would roll a die. And I just go, yep, this one. Well, I wanted to cast this, but it turns out to be that. Another fun thing is when somebody asks me to, I make them roll it. DM wants a spell, he better roll it.
Yeah.
It never worked out right.
Yeah, that one, that method,
That made
it
it
didn't
way
last,
more
but
interesting.
it was very interesting, actually.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of rolling.
Yeah, that's an example of not always the optimal route, but it is thematic and fun.
But how would you make it more streamlined and a better accessory, and not take too far away from the story, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, streamline it a bit. I would probably make some different tables, because while I like the Wild Magic tables, some of the effects are a little too not ready for that party level sometimes, or just completely doesn't make sense for the campaign. So sometimes I'll get some custom charts from online, or I'll make one myself. And like I agree with you, sometimes the other players roll the effects can be very fun. Or I'll have it be a building effect. Like it may not happen right there. It could happen elsewhere. There's one YouTuber I've watched where she animated a story where her bard character awoke the Tarrasque. You know which one I'm talking about, by doing karaoke. Their wild magic was used, their mage was using special effects, presentation, ghost sound, and then wild magic kicks in and it creates an anti-magic field that covers the entire city. That just so happened to be keeping the terrace sealed.
Well, that's nothing. I read a story about a wizard who brought back the skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus using polka. Dibs to those who get the reference.
Yeah.
But either way, I got you. One of the silliest answers I've ever given for this is somebody once asked me how to streamline a barbarian, and I'll give the same answer for how to streamline the wild mage: skin type bodysuit, aerodynamic staff. And,
Yeah.
I believe this young lady back here had a question.
I guess in general, do you have any tips or ideas for creating a character from just kind of a character we already know or like?
Like a pre-existing IP character kind
Try
of thing.
your best to boil it down to the base elements to present that character, and then try to find ways in order to bring about those base structures you were looking for. Because I know it can be incredibly difficult to take any pop culture thing and implement it into D&D, or any tabletop game, to be honest. But the best analogy I'll give is if I was going to make a, I'm trying to think of a pop culture person. If I was going to make, who?
Loki.
Loki. Okay, if I was going to make Loki, I'd have to pick something that would have silent image. Like, I'd probably go with a sorcerer, so I could have the silent image spells. And then I would try to give myself the noble background, so I'd have this air of nobility to myself and a little more sway in certain situations. And anything that would give me charisma upgrades, because I believe the sorcerer is still a charisma caster.
Yes.
There you go. So that would be the perfect way to integrate those little portions of Loki. Now, I'm not going to get everybody to not trust me immediately. I'm going to earn that on my own. Would
Right.
you like to try that?
I would also add on the Loki taking at least a couple levels in Trickster Cleric to get the Invoke Duplicity, as you can cast through your images, which is very Loki-like. And that's something with the idea of bringing a pre-existing character, especially from comics and anime and video games that have these wild abilities. Sometimes you have to focus on what element of that character you really want to bring to the table, and you get as much of the other stuff as you can. Some you can do really well, but it might take all 20 levels. Some you can get pretty quick. Any Gish character, which is a mage slash like fighter type, the Hexblade Warlock works really well for it. It can meet a lot of concepts, which is some reskinning, reflavoring. And that comes online pretty quick. However, for all the other fun features of a character, you would definitely need some more levels, but you work towards that, and you can make it happen. But yeah, no, it's a good question.
Oh, I think that person has a question.
So I'm about to run my very first campaign. So I have this queen that's like the queen of this mystical wonderland, and she's actually like my major villain character.
Big bad evil guy, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to make her seem like a very twist villain without going too far in like dropping hints.
Okay.
So how can I be like super subtle about that?
Subtle and build up to it. I got you.
Every so often, give when somebody goes, there's this great evil moving along, I've seen an image of, and just give a light reference to the original character and just slowly build on that as the destruction or dismay or general unhappiness goes. Another fun way is to give them a little NPC friend to join in the group and then murder him.
Real.
That's actually a couple of modules.
You'd be surprised how quickly Boblin the Goblin gets avenged.
Yeah. You could also, depending on how twisted you want to make the villainous in this case, even have almost direct messages to the party. You could start doing, there's a wonderful spell called Nightmare, where the target receives nightmares that disrupts their long rest sometimes, or makes it not as effective. You can use that, you don't have to do the full mechanics of it, but just to keep sending these images, like you're cordially invited and it's this like twisted tea party kind of thing, and really, most people don't leave the party.
They're telling us we only have 5 more hours.
Okay, 5 more hours, awesome, thank you. But yeah, I agree, just throughout the campaign, not to the point where every session's like, here you go, here you go. It's like, but no, like, oh, like he was saying, you go to this one town and it's been ravaged and there's this, or part of it was hit and a calling card almost.
Yes. Another fun way is name anagrams. It's like, yes, these letters. And then it's like, literally that person's name reimagined. That helps a lot too, because we'll be like, wait a minute, we keep seeing these same letters, different orders, at different locations where this stuff's happening. And I don't know if you're old enough, but if you are running your own campaign right now and it's your first, whiskey and player tiers, they mix well. Perfect. Whiskey and player tiers mix so well.
Yep. Any other character questions on the?
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, we've got a couple minutes left, so. No, okay.
All right. So let me ask. Oh, you got one.
Same campaign, group of people, one of the other new players. They're playing Batman. They're just very brooding and
Okay.
not interact with anyone.
The
else.
edgelord,
Like,
yeah.
It's almost like he's playing the cliche edgelord. He's like, no, I want my character to interact with everyone, but I have no reason for it. I'm like, we've set up every rhyme and reason for you to talk to anyone, and you're just staring at a fire.
Yeah.
Stop providing him with loot and provide it to the other party members, and make him ask them for it.
Yeah.
And if not, kill him off by introducing the Joker.
Yeah. Also, remind him he's not the main character. There is no main character. The group is the main character.
I thought I was the main character.
So- but yeah, remind him it's a team game, and that he needs to have a reason for his character to help them, to work with them. Even if he has some ulterior motive, like usually it's when you have an evil character playing within a party of good characters, and they're keeping it hidden, they will play along with them, and they'll do everything, they'll help them. But in the end, they're after this one thing that the party would normally be opposed against. So I would try working, talking with them like, hey man, you gotta be part of the team. If this character is not gonna be part of the team, maybe it's time you make a more team-oriented character.
On top of that, one thing we did in a previous campaign is to assign in-game jobs to your players. You are currently the person who is in charge. You are the quartermaster. Any equipment we get, any money we get, I need you to keep a record and the distribution of that. You are a legend keeper. I need you to keep a complete, not a complete, but just a note by note of what adventures we've done so far, what happened, and how they resulted. And then, as you give each person each job, well, you're gonna have to go at the beginning of every game, go, okay, so who remembers what happened last week? Is there any new equipment? And make them actually work as a party and as a team.
Kind of like I don't want to say metagame, but metagame, give them jobs.
Exactly.
It,
But no, it's like also in game, it's like your character holds all the equipment because you've got the bag of holding.
yeah, it also takes a burden off the DM a bit too, where you have the players keeping track of certain things that you don't have to worry about because they're doing it, and you can focus on other things. So that's also helpful.
But in order to keep consistent, violence. Lots and lots of
You
violence.
just mentioned the bag of holding. If I'm not having them keep track of like rations, food, water, weight, I don't need a bag of holding.
You don't need it, but it's always fun to have.
You don't in that case, and usually just assume the characters be smart enough to, while they're in town, to buy and get what they need. Like an archer type will always have their arrows, because why wouldn't they have made more arrows in their downtime? If you're
Werewolf the
playing a
artificer.
nitty-gritty survival game, though, you make them keep track of everything, because then it's a mechanic of the campaign and it matters. But yeah, if you don't, then the bag of holding more serves for major loot and gold, because gold weighs a lot, especially when you have a lot of coins. And your DM says you get a shit ton of gold, and then later on you get to cash it in. He has to calculate how much gold that is.
So I think we're going to do one last question and then we're going to call it. So you had the question. Go for it.
I think that a big part of creating your characters, I guess creating them as you go in the story too, right?
Mhm.
Their growth. I was wondering, as a DM, what is the best way to balance the growth of the party members to let not make one person feel so much like the main character and like give everyone like a fair amount of room to like grow and feel cool?
I got you.
Murder them all regularly. Players love to be murdered.
Okay.
As a DM, you'd want to try to find a way to incorporate all the backstories
I
to.
want to make everyone feel cool.
Yeah, you give everyone their spotlight, their moment to shine, and you remind the players everyone gets a moment to shine. So that if you've built a character with a concept and has this really neat trick, A good DM will never deny you to do that trick. You may not be able to always do that trick, but a good DM will do that, and you can do that and give each of their players their turn and their backstory sort of converging in on the final event. And now they're more invested because, wait, that happened to you? That happened to me. Oh my God, we got to get this guy, you know, and it just brings everyone together.
Thank you for a great question. And we will be taking questions out there in the hallway in order to annoy the red shirt, because I'm becoming more and more of a Star Trek fan every second. Oh, by the way, I will let you know that our Solaires up here have gold coins created by a craftsman by the name of the Shifty Kobold, and they're giving them away if you can get them to praise the sun.
For each coin.